Hello and welcome to the newest and latest edition of The Verdict. No Angus McNay once again this week. He is sunning himself and becoming even more of a bronzed Adonis on the beach. And instead, it's me, and I've been joined by Martin Dwyer. Martin, how are you? I know you've been perusing the form over the last 7 days pretty in depth.
Yeah, I've been watching plenty of racing, Tom. A little bit nervous about this. A lot of pressure on, a lot of facts and figures, so let's hope we get it right.
Yes, indeed. And I know that you're a facts and figures man. At least you've had to become one on this week's episode of The Verdicts. Let's crack on, because we're going to start talking about some of the really interesting and fascinating racing as regards the future from the weekend. And the first contest we're going to look at is the 145 at the Curragh, which is won by Delacroix. Those are the winners, and the rest of the car. We'll be coming to a few of those a little bit later on, including the 325 Give Me the Beat Boys and the 435 Babouche. We'll be discussing those a little bit later, along with the 250 won by Falling Snow. But Delacroix was the winner of the 145. But it wasn't all about Delacroix in this contest, because Acapulco Bay, who eventually finished in second place, Martin, was certainly rather a big eye-catcher.
Yeah, we just see Delacroix just playing up and rearing up in the stalls here, Tom, but he did settle down. Ryan Moore got back on board, and you'll see in a minute he breaks really smartly despite him playing up beforehand. He didn't have much improvement to show on his second to green impact last time, so Delacroix was the worthy favourite, and he pops out really well and takes a forward position, you'll see in a minute, as the gates open. But on the other hand, his stablemate, Acapulco Bay, you see him now at the back of the picture, where the winner is right at the front, Delacroix. Ryan Moore taking up a forward position, but look how far back the eventual second is, Acapulco Bay. We see the brake speed there. Delacroix got from 0 to 20 in 2.56 seconds, whereas Acapulco Bay took 3.34 seconds. So that tells you the tail of the race. Look at the ground that Wayne Lorden has got to eventually make up to try and challenge the eventual winner in Delacroix.
Yeah, he's come from a long way back there, and the difference in brake speed was quite notable. And in a maiden, particularly one that's likely to be of pretty good quality at the Curragh, you'd think it'd be pretty impossible to make up that ground if you are Acapulco Bay. But to his credit, we'll see him start to make plenty of headway very quickly in a moment or two.
Well, that's what makes this a special performance for me. If we look at Acapulco Bay, he starts coming under pressure here. Wayne Lorden, he moves to the outside to get one clear run at the field, but he's got so much ground to make up. And Ryan Moore had just controlled things to a nicety in front, but in a minute here you'll see the camera angle changes, and you think Acapulco Bay, you think he's made up ground, and between the two furlongs and the furlong marker, you see here, looks in behind a little bit, running green, and you think, well, he's probably going to fade away now and probably finish 4th or 5th, where the winner is kicking for home, and you see Delacroix he's just got his ears back a bit, maybe not coping with the fast ground, but he is quickening away. But look at Acapulco Bay, look at how much ground he makes up, and his finishing speed is pretty impressive, and he gets so close to the winner here, and even after the line, he's more or less passed out his stablemate. We just see in a minute here, you see Wayne Lorden, he's just trying to steady up now, because you know they're going to run into these boards in a minute, Tom. And look at him, he's still pulling for his head, Acapulco Bay. He's still full of running at the end of that race. I mean, look, Wayne is having to try and play with a bit through his mouth to steady him up, because the boards are coming up quickly, and he ends up overtaking his stablemate. The last horse I've seen finish like this at the Curragh, almost running into the boards at the end, was the mighty City of Troy when he won his maiden on Derby Day last year. I just thought this was a very impressive run from the second.
I think what's even more notable for me is that they went fairly steady early. The fractions weren't particularly fast, and at the Curragh, if you go steady fractions in a race of this nature over this kind of trip, it can be even harder to close from off the pace. And the fact that Acapulco Bay has come from so far back to nearly catch Delacroix, I think says a lot about his potential, a lot about what we could be talking about in the future as a potential group horse in the making.
Absolutely, he's done everything the hard way, because he was slowly away, as we've seen from the brake speed. He had all that ground to make up. Ryan steadied up in the early part of the race and then used the downhill section of the Curragh to get rolling, and then he kicked from the front end. So I think it was a good performance from the winner, who sets a really good standard here. But for me, Acapulco Bay has got to be the horse taken out of the race.
Yeah, and the sectional figures really back up what Martin has just said. We can take a look at them now. And you've got Acapulco Bay there obviously in second behind Delacroix. But the thing that I wanted to remark on most here, Martin, was that 10.75 second sixth furlong from Acapulco Bay, which was the quickest. And you could tell that visually as well, because he made so much ground down the outside. And then going into that seventh furlong, 11.08, he kept it going. Not quite as fast, of course, but it was a lot faster than any of his rivals, and in particular, faster than Delacroix. So he was catching all the time and kept that pace going in a sustained fashion, which I think says a lot about his ability perhaps to go further in time over a slightly longer trip, but also about his ability too.
Yeah, absolutely. The clock doesn't lie, does it? And those last sectionals were pretty impressive. He was quickening all the way to the winning line. So if he can jump on terms next time and sit handy, he could be devastating, couldn't he?
And that finishing speed as well, 112% from the winner, from the second, sorry, as opposed to the winner, 110%. So quite a disparity between those figures too, suggesting that in the future, and potentially if they met again, these two, Acapulco Bay could be the one to keep on side. We've been lucky enough to see a plethora of very good two-year-old performances over the last few days, and the second contest we're going to look at in detail is absolutely no different, because we saw a newcomer in the shape of Falling Snow, who ran a very strong opening race to nail Ballet Slippers, who was sent off odds-on favourite, having had the one start so far, but it was the debutante Falling Snow who hit into everybody's notebooks here, Martin.
Absolutely, Tom. And Ballet Slippers, she set the standard here for Aidan O'Brien. She was third to Red Letter over course and distance last month. And as you see, she broke really well, and she slides across to the rail under Ryan Moore. But look at this big grey filly, Falling Snow. Aidan O'Brien's got some fantastic two-year-old fillies this year, but it looks like Donica has got one on his hands too, because this filly was really impressive, Tom. She's got a wonderful pedigree by Justify out of Winter, who was a multiple Group 1 winning mare at 3, and I just love this filly. Look how easily she's just glided through this race and sat on the girths of Ballet Slippers. But a lot to like about this performance. Yeah, she broke quickly out of the stall. She clearly knew her job. Ballet Slippers had the previous experience with that very promising third first time out, but Falling Snow always travelling well. It was a very taking effort, I thought, for a first time, but particularly because Ballet Slippers had that rail to help, and Falling Snow didn't really, I think, look particularly green at any point during the race, Martin. The bit I was impressed with, Tom, is probably this section of the race where the filly with the experience, Ballet Slippers, has kicked under Ryan Moore and gone a length up on it on Falling Snow, but she's quickened really well to get back on terms. And you see here, she just gets up and wins by a neck. But I think she's better than the winning margin. I think she's pretty smart to do this against a horse with experience and do it in the style that she did. But you just see here in a minute, Ryan Moore, he's got the experience, he's got the rail, like you said, he's kicked on Ballet Slippers, and as Gavin Ryan just gives this filly a reminder and gives her a flick, I just think she quickens really well between the last furlong and a half to the winning post, and I think she will improve massively for this. Yeah, the vibes are pretty strong about the eventual runner-up, Ballet Slippers. I think they think she's quite good, so the fact that Falling Snow was able to do that on her debut speaks pretty highly about her future, I think, and certainly a promising performance, there's no doubt about that. And I love the way she really put her ears back in the closing stages to finish off her race too on her debut. And she's one of plenty of two-year-olds potentially we could see for the 1,000 guineas either in England or Ireland next year. And of course, winning trainer Donica O'Brien has done pretty well, hasn't he, with the likes of Porter Fortuna? He has, and he's making a great name for himself as a top-level trainer. I think he said after the race that she'll run maybe once more this year, and then he'll put her away for next year. So she could be like a mother, and she could have a great three-year-old campaign, and I really think she could be top-level. Yeah, I think there's going to be plenty more to come from her. Let's have a look at the sectionals from Race IQ and see how it all stacks up. Some pretty interesting figures to note here, including Falling Snow's top speed, 42.19 miles an hour, which was the fastest in the race and faster than Ballet Slippers, as you'd expect. And a strong finishing speed too there, Martin. Falling Snow's 106.76%. That was the fastest as well, and faster than Ballet Slippers. So on the figures too, they completely back up what we saw visually. Yeah, I think I watched the race live, and I thought, and my initial reaction was, wow, that was a big performance. And like I said, watching a replay, the last two furlongs were her best, and I liked the way she got outpaced by the runner-up, but then she closed on her to get back up and win a neck, and the times reflect that, don't they? A top speed of 42.19 miles per hour, and that was in the second last furlong, so she that really was a performance you could mark up. I'm definitely sure of that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think also noteworthy is that 0 to 20 mile an hour graphic as well, because she was third fastest coming out of the gates Falling Snow, just behind Ballet Slippers and Celtic Motif. And considering it was her first start, I think that screams potential, and she should know even more next time, so perhaps we'll break even quicker out of the gates. But one thing's for sure, we could have seen a potential group horse in Falling Snow. Time now to assess the next contest here on The Verdict. And the first group race we're going to look at involves Give Me the Beat Boys, who I thought, Martin, got given a fine ride in Group 3 company at the Curragh on Saturday.
He did, didn't he? He flopped somewhat, didn't he, in the Commonwealth Cup at Ascot, Royal Ascot. He never really travelled and never got into the race. But on this occasion, you'll see he's broken well. And you see Shane Foley, he gets him right up on the front end. A really positive ride. And the eventual runner-up, Kind of Blue, is just sat in a slipstream under Dan Muscat. But as the race unfolds, although Shane Foley's been positive on Give Me the Beat Boys, they haven't gone flat out, Tom. I thought it was just not a steadily run race, but it wasn't run at breakneck speed by any stretch of the imagination. And you'll see in a minute, Shane Foley, he comes under pressure quite early. We're just past the half-mile pole now, and you can see Shane Foley already starting to niggle on the winner, Give Me the Beat Boys. But I think this has suited him because he does come under pressure, and he's not the fastest 6 furlong horse, which doesn't probably make sense. But you can see, as opposed to the runner-up, Kind of Blue is sat in behind. You see there, we're just seeing Dan Muscat was sat quiet in the saddle, where Shane Foley is all out and getting everything out to Give Me the Beat Boys. And eventually you see Kind of Blue moves upside with a challenge to go and get him, but it doesn't quite get there soon enough. I actually think if Dan Muscat rode this race again, he'd have probably challenged a bit sooner. I think it was just left it too late. You know, when a jockey just overconfident, just sits that little bit too long, and that made a difference. The winning margin was a neck, and I thought, Give Me the Beat Boys being ridden positively on the front end. And you'll see here in a minute, you'll get what I mean. You look at Dan Muscat's body language on the second horse. He sat quiet here now, and I just don't think he's given his horse enough time to respond and go and find that extra change of gear. I think if these two met again over 6 furlongs, I think the second would turn it around.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because my initial interpretation of the race that actually Kind of Blue did have enough time to go past, and maybe it's Give Me the Beat Boys who wanted it that a little bit more because he stuck his neck out. In the past, we've seen Give Me the Beat Boys do similar. He's very tough from the front. But actually, Martin, I'm starting to think now that perhaps, as you say, Give Me the Beat Boys possibly isn't the quickest sprinter. He's often off the bridle, isn't he, over that trip? But perhaps that strong stamina he has over the trip has seen him through.
Yeah, for me, I've thought for a while, you've got to admire him. He really does know how to get his jacket off and go to work. He never lets you down, but he just doesn't look like a natural 6 furlong horse, having to be ridden from halfway. And I just think if he steps up to 7 furlongs, even a mile possibly, he could actually improve and be a top-level Group 1 horse, where the second, I think if the race was ran a bit differently, or Dan would have challenged a bit earlier, I think he would have got up and won. They might reoppose each other in the Group 1 Haydock Sprint, and I think under a different ride, I really do think Kind of Blue could probably get his revenge.
Yeah, and Kind of Blue, let's not forget, is more likely raced as well than Give Me the Beat Boys. Has developed quite a prolific record now at Group Company, but is yet to really find his stride properly. Perhaps that's going to come. Let's have a look at the figures then from that race and see how they match up with what we've just seen. I think, interestingly, in this race, Martin, we had Kind of Blue as fastest in 3rd, 4th and 5th furlongs, wasn't he? He was much quicker than Give Me the Beat Boys in all those furlongs. But despite that, he still couldn't go past because of the ride that Give Me the Beat Boys was given from the front. And you can see that 6th furlong and final furlong, actually, they were both exactly the same time.
Exactly. You know, I'm watching the race from a jockey's perspective, having ridden for so many years, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe, Dan, you should have woke up a bit earlier and you've let that horse get first run on you. And it is amazing the small margins it takes to get beat or win a neck. And as you said, the 3rd, 4th and 5th furlongs of that race, Kind of Blue has run faster than the winner. So it backs up what you see with your own eyes. And yeah, they're very small margins at this level. And I do think Kind of Blue, if he'd have challenged a bit sooner, would have got up and won. and I think the times reflect that.
Yeah, you do have to give a bit of credit, though, to the winner, Give Me the Beat Boys, who's found plenty in the closing stages. And if you look at those final furlong speeds, 22.39 seconds as opposed to 22.36, there was very little in it. You said fine margins. We certainly had that. But I think at the end of the day, ultimately, perhaps it was the best ride that won the day.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You've got to love Give Me the Beat Boys. His attitude. He's a Group 3 winner there over 6 furlongs. But what could he do over 7 or a mile? That's my opinion.
Yeah, hopefully go down that route at some point in the future. Maybe 7 furlongs, maybe a mile for Give Me the Beat Boys. OK, time now to look at the feature race on Saturday at the Curragh, which was the Phoenix Stakes, a Group 1. And we all thought it was going to take a fairly spectacular performance to beat Whistle Jacket, who was sent off odds-on favourites after bolting up when we last saw him. And in the end, Martin Dwyer, I think we did get that performance.
Top-class performance from the winner, wasn't it, Tom? The filly, she comes out to stall 3 here in the Juddmonte colours, and Whistle Jacket in the green colours from stall 2. Watch how quick Whistle Jacket is out of the gates and into stride. And Ryan Moore, good and positive on him. And he's set a nice fractions in the first furlong, Tom. For me, the interesting part of this race is going into the second furlong, where you see David Egan on Arizona Blue just move up and challenge Ryan Moore. And it's this point, I think Ryan Moore's thinking, I want to settle this pace down a bit. I want to steady it down and ride to finish. And you just see David Egan slides up sides, eyeballs him, takes him on, and I think they're going pretty quick here. And Colin Keenan behind in the Juddmonte colours, I bet he couldn't believe his luck. He's following his main danger, and they're going pretty hard in front of him and almost softening each other up a little bit. And this filly has travelled supremely well. And you see Colin just angles out for that run. And I just think she shows an explosive turn of foot here to go past Whistle Jacket and put the race to bed pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I thought Colin Keane was showing oodles of confidence, really. He obviously got to work quite hard at this point, but he'd been tracking, wasn't getting too far behind in the saddle there. And as soon as Barbouche takes over, it's pretty instantaneous, the turn of foot, really, to see off Whistle Jacket. We'll see from the sectionals in a few moments' time that they did soften each other up. We see that for the figures. But even so, given that closing performance there from Barbouche, it's likely we've seen a very smart filly, I think.
I think she's top level, Tom, I really do. She travelled so well over 6 and quickened to put the race to bed well. We go back to the run-up Whistle Jacket. We're just seeing, look at his head carriage, Tom. His head just comes up a little bit high. I'm wondering whether that ground was a bit too lively for him on Saturday. When he won a Newmarket in the July Stakes, there was cut in the ground. So I think the ground's a bit too fast for Whistle Jacket, but take nothing away from the winner. She was pretty smart.
Yeah, and given the fact that Whistle Jacket and Arizona Blue took each other on a little bit, and Barbouche is waiting in the wings, obviously showed that nice turn of pace at the end, I'm not sure who I'd pick if they met again, you know. I think Whistle Jacket could easily get his revenge in a race that perhaps suited him more.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think Whistle Jacket was softened up early on. He was taken on. But the winner, she might have won anyway. She showed a really good turn of foot, and she was getting £3 off Whistle Jacket. But I think the ground could be key for Whistle Jacket.
OK, that's a really good point. Let's have a look at the figures, because once again, the Race IQ statistics back up what we said about Whistle Jacket and Arizona Blaze softening each other up, because those early times are a lot quicker than we saw from Give Me the Beat Boys earlier on in Group 3 company, and suggest that they have gone a little bit too hard in the early part of the race, which allowed Barbouche to finish, albeit slower than Give Me the Beat Boys finished in the previous race. So really, they have gone a little bit too quick, I think, judged on those figures in that Phoenix Stakes.
Yeah, the figures tell that the 2-year-olds have gone quicker early on over the same distance than the older horses.
Well, we also had some pretty classy action at Newmarket on Saturday, as well as the Curragh. So let's have a look at some of those performances that stood out. Tabiti and Lake Victoria we'll be chatting about in a few moments' time. Some nice performances elsewhere from the likes of Mount Tyder, who's certainly starting to find his stride. But we're going to start by looking at Tabiti in that 155. And this was a really explosive effort, first time up, from, I think, a filly who could have the world at her hooves, Martin. Yeah,
it was a smart performance from a top-class filly. She broke well from stall 10. We're going to look back at the eventual third in a minute, Rockin' the Boat, who we just seen come out of stall 5, and she was quite a bit slower, wasn't she? It took her 3.17 seconds to get to 20 miles per hour, whereas Tabiti did it in 2.64 seconds. So we see the winner jumped smart, knew her job, always travelling comfortable on the front end in the green cap of the Judgmont colours, where we just see Rocking the Boat is much further back from that slow start and running quite a bit green under Holly Doyle. But the winner, look how well she's travelling. What a lovely filly. To do this on a first run, I thought was a special performance, Tom.
I can't really believe how well she's known her job compared to some in this race who've had previous starts already. She flew out of the stalls. We saw that from the graphic a little bit earlier on. And then I love the way she gets into a rhythm. She looks so at ease with herself, doesn't she? She looks as though she's seen a racecourse 100 times in the past.
Yeah, she obviously knows her job. And I think she was well fancied coming into this race. I know when Rafe Beckett has a nice filly on his hands, he likes to target these type of races. And look at her, she's the last one off the bridle, just being squeezed along by Rosser. And she just elegance the way she carries herself. She makes a really nice shape, real honest filly. And I just love the way she quickens down into the dip. And if you just glance back to Holly Doyle in the striped colours on Rocking the Boat, she's really struggling to cope with that turn of foot. She's got quite a bit of ground to make up, and I was really impressed with how she made it up under a hands and heels ride from Holly Doyle. But we go back to the winner here. She's starting to put a bit of daylight between herself and the rest of the field, and she's won like a really smart filly.
Yeah, we saw the finishing speeds there. Rocking the Boat actually finished quicker than Tabiti in the end, and you can see pulling up. That's very clear.
I always like to watch 2-year-olds pulling up at the end of the race, or any maidens, and look at those striped colours, Holly Doyle in the saddle. I know they're all pulling up, but this filly, again, still full of running, still plenty of energy left. Really looking forward to seeing Rocking the Boat run next time.
Yeah, me too, but I think the winner could be extremely good to Tabiti. Love the way that she did that generally. We take the head on here, and she's the last one off the bridle. She's got a very high cruising speed, and as you say, Rafe has targeted races like this for this kind of filly in the past, who have then gone to do pretty good things at Group Company too. I'd expect the same from her. Haven't we been so lucky this weekend, Martin, to see, I think, 3 or 4 2-year-old fillies who could potentially put their hat in the ring for a potential 1,000 guineas bid next year?
Absolutely, all lines up for good racing next year, doesn't it? This filly, I just love her. I mean, look at the attitude. She's just so professional, and he's barely moved on her in the end, Rosser, and she's just done it so easily. And interestingly, this race was 0.10 seconds slower than the next race we're going to look at, which is a Group 3 race.
Okay, that's a really interesting point. Let's have a look at some of the figures then in a bit more detail for this contest, and Tabiti, the eventual winner. Fastest furlong, 11.25 seconds ahead of Zanzoon's 11.26, but it was the finishing speed really that caught my eye the most. Tabiti, 102.76, and Rocking the Boat, most notably, that 102.93. So the third could be a potential classy performer in the future, but there's no doubt, surely there'll be some future booty for Tabiti. OK, one more race to look at from Saturday at Newmarket. It is the Sweet Solera Stakes, Group 3 for fillies, and one of the feature races on the card. And I think we saw a feature performance too from Lake Victoria, seeing off the closing challenge of Mountain Breeze back in that runner-up spot. 2 smart fillies, I think, Martin.
Absolutely, Tom. And we see here Sean Levy on Lake Victoria popped out of stall 6 and made the run in. He was pretty positive, although I thought the race slowed down, and Pat Dobbs had decided to drop in on Mountain Breeze. You see there, bottom left, Lake Victoria's done the first furlong in 14.97 seconds, whereas Mountain Breeze has covered the first furlong in 15.26 seconds, and that's the 6th slowest of the race. And I think that sets the tone of the race. Already, the runner-up is 0.29 seconds behind the winner by the end of the first furlong, and you can see Sean Levy just controlling this race from the front. He's keeping a tight hold of Lake Victoria, and he's ready to kick when he wants to go, and he's riding a really good waiting race from the front. And you glance back to the second, Mountain Breeze, Pat Dobbs is probably thinking here, oh, I've got a bit of ground to make up, and they're getting it easy in front.
Do you think that Lake Victoria was over-racing slightly in Sean Levy's hands in the beginning part of that race?
He was sat against her, there's no doubt about that. I wouldn't say she's over-racing, I'd say he's just trying to control the tempo, and that is exactly what he did. And you see here now, he asked her to extend, and he's quickening from the front. She just spots that big screen. You see her move to her right-hand side, left as we look at it. Her ears were pricked. She just glanced the big screen and moved away from it, but she quickened really well. It was a good front-running ride, and he's probably stole the race. She might be the best filly in the race anyway, but I'm sure, once again, if Pat Dobbs could have rode that again, he would have sat a lot closer to the winner.
Yeah, and I think this is going to show us a nice view of her errancy inside that final furlong. You've said in the past, Martin, that plenty of horses at Newmarket look at that big screen and can jink to their right, and that's exactly what happened. Yeah,
we don't see it, do we, on this shot here, but when you're riding these races, everybody knows you come up that hill, you see Sean Levy just glance over at the big screen to have a look at how his style was looking. But yeah, so many horses, they look at that and shy away from it because it's right in your eye line and it's very close to the rail, the far rail.
Yeah, I think Lake Victoria could be yet another 2-year-old filly with the world at her feet, potentially a 1,000 guineas horse for next year. Let's have a look at the figures for this, and Lake Victoria's final furlongs, 23.82 seconds, over Mountain Breeze's 23.87, so there really wasn't too much between the two of them.
No, there wasn't, was there? Mountain Breeze stepping up to 7 for the first time. I guess Pat Dobbs was thinking, I'm going to make sure this filly sees out the race, but in total, I think he probably sat a bit too far back on a slow run race. But I guess Pat wasn't to know that the race was going to really slow up after a furlong like it did. Yeah,
and look at that 7th furlong time as well. Lake Victoria had the fastest, 12.54 seconds, over Mountain Breeze's 12.61 and Esley's Ruin of 12.57. So the fact that I thought she was a little bit keen in the early part of the race, Lake Victoria, the fact that she could keep on like that, particularly up what is a fairly stiff finish at Newmarket, I think says a lot about her attitude and her class too.
Yeah, she's controlled the race from the front, and as you say, Sean Levy was sat against her to harness that speed she has. But she quickened really well, and even though she veered off to the right a little bit in the closing stages, she still put a bit of distance between herself and the rest of the field. I thought it was a classy performance.
Yeah, I did too. We've seen plenty of 2-year-old fillies who could well throw their hat in the ring for big races next year. So if I had to ask you for a highlight over the last weekend or so, Martin, from the 6 races we've had a look at, what would you say?
Acapulco Bay. Cannot wait to see that horse run again. I thought that was a massive performance.
And a horse who, of course, finished second on debut, but it's the way that he closed down the outside of the field and that second last furlong sectional that really, I think, put him into everyone's notebooks.
Well, exactly, and the winner's pretty smart. Delacroix was smart, and I bet you Ryan Moore was smiling when he watched the replay back, thinking he's just won on a nice type. That will be progressing further into group races, and then you see the stablemate almost passing him, pulling up and hitting the boards at the end. I think he's got a big future. I think we've been lucky. We've seen some really smart performances from some maidens. I'll be looking forward to watching David Manugier's rocking the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to seeing her once again. I want to quickly touch once again on Babouche, though, in that Group 1 performance, the Phoenix Stakes. You think she'll probably be kept to sprinting distances, whereas perhaps Whistle Jacket might go further in time?
Yeah, I think Whistle Jacket is ground dependent. I think he's going to need a little bit of cut in the ground. I think we'll see more of him and better of him than that performance. Babouche, I thought that was an outstanding performance to travel that easily on a strong pace and quicken to win. I'd be surprised if they try and venture beyond 7 or a mile this year. I think they'll stick at 6. Cheveley Park, maybe.
And what about the Ballydoyle team of 2-year-old fillies? They got Fairy Godmother and Bedtime Story as well to add to their plethora of riches. It really is an embarrassment of riches, isn't it, they've got?
Well, I mean, that's why Lake Victoria went to Newmarket on Saturday, because he's got to split them up some way. But, I mean, we could be set up for a nice end-of-year Group 1 programme, the Moy-Glare, the Debutante Stakes to come. So, yeah, a lot to look forward to.
Absolutely, yes. Martin, thanks very much for your time. Been a lot of fun this week on The Verdict.
Yeah, it's been good. I hope we've made Angus proud.
Yeah, nice to get the facts and figures out for Martin. I know that you enjoyed all that and the prep work for this. Good stuff. Thanks all for watching. Angus McNay will be back next week, having spent the last 2 weeks sunning himself on the beach. I'm sure he's enjoyed it, and I'm sure he'll be returning with what will be rather a nice bronzed tan.
As a member of Racing TV, you get access to dedicated live racecourse feeds through Racing TV Extra. All you need to do is log in with your Racing TV username and password. Racing TV Extra puts you in control, so you can focus on the races or meetings that matter to you. If watching on a desktop, tablet or Apple TV, you can select from 1 to 4 live screens. On mobile phones and Amazon Fire TV, single screen options are available. Never miss a moment of action with Racing TV Extra at racingtv.com.